You, as Labor Secretary, the Obama administration as a whole, has stressed that private industry hiring number, 1.5 million new private jobs. But with so many governments, state,
Right.
county, municipal governments, the federal government itself under so much pressure, as 2011 continues, are we going to see big losses in government employment?
Well, I would tell you that we have seen the effects in terms of education and local government, and part of that has to do with property taxes and also taxes that were not being received by the states, so obviously they had to cut back. I think some states are grappling with that, like California. They're also looking at initiatives to put on the ballot, for example, in California, to actually continue some of the taxes that were actually imposed years back, and just keeping them going to keep them going. So I think it's going to be a balancing act for our states. I don't think that right now the federal government or the Congress is in a position to say that we're going to somehow be able to address all that. We're all going to have to come to the table, all make hard decisions and tighten our belt. And that's what the federal government is doing. That's what I've had to do in my department. We've already cut back about 5%. And the president has also froze hiring federal employees and done many, many things already. So we're already scaling back now with the notion that people know you can't spend in ways that people were used to, and the federal government has to show leadership too.
They say, and whenever you interview economists about the labor market, they always tell you that unemployment is a lagging indicator. That is, things start to improve before bosses start to make new hires. Why is that such a big problem this time? The lag is longer. People are sitting on a lot of cash, but still not taking on new employees. Why?
It's hard to describe. I think businesses tell me that they wanted to see more. I guess in one way, some businesses were telling me they still did not have enough access to capital, particularly medium, small size, and minority-owned businesses. So that's a struggle. The other is that I think that people wanted to see stability. And after December, when the president met with the Republicans and they all came together and they put forward tax credits and breaks for businesses, I think that's when you started to see a realization that there was stability in our economy, and therefore you saw improvements in this past January. Now you see it in our job reports, and especially the payroll tax. That helps working class people because that money stays in their pocketbook. They spend it right away. It goes back into the community and keeps those small business owners, the bodegas, all the stores and things that kind of run our local economy as well. Very, very important. And I think that as we go through this year, we're going to see a slow but stable growth. And I'm hoping that we can continue on that trajectory.
If you're a neighborhood retailer, a family business, if you want to open up another location in your neighborhood or just take over the shop next door and expand, if you're sitting in a bank manager's office, is it easier to get a loan than it was this time last year?
What I hear is that it is somewhat difficult in part because of what happened during the recession. So if you had to cut back, you had to close, or you weren't able to pay your bills, all that shows up on your background and your credit. And obviously, we're trying to address that by making it easier for lending to small businesses and giving tax credits for people to hire up folks like veterans, as well as an incentive to give small business owners a $5,000 tax credit so they can hire people and hopefully use that money then to invest in other things and hopefully expand. I think there's a lot that we still need to do, and the president is very focused, and so am I. I'm trying to think of any way that we can work in partnership with businesses, because the federal government doesn't create the jobs, it's the private industry.
This week, the state of Wisconsin passed a law basically saying that it was no longer recognizing union rights to collectively bargain with the state of Wisconsin. Is this going to give a lot of other states the signal that they can do the same thing? If you're a public worker somewhere in the United States, should you be losing a little sleep this week over what Wisconsin did?
Well, it's unfortunate what took place, because I do believe that the public sector unions told the governor that they were willing to make concessions and take those cuts, to take more cuts. But obviously that was not of great concern to the governor. And it's unfortunate, because we're really talking about working class people, talking about teachers, firefighters, police officers who take care of our communities. And I would say that what I've seen in terms of polling is that the governor there is not being well received, because of what he did. He tried to use the argument they needed to control the budget and bring down costs, but he seemed to have separated those issues, collective bargaining and the budget. That's how he was able to get a quorum and just be able to, not a quorum, but at least a majority of voters, those voting in the Senate, to pass his reform to actually, just minimize and take away the rights of folks that want to bargain collectively. To me, that is going in the wrong direction, and I think the president has been very clear about that as well. We're not in favor of seeing that happen. We think people should have a right to meet at the table and decide those priorities and discussions, just like you and I do at our table when we're figuring out what our priorities are for the year or for the month. Those are things that are a part of our American fabric, and to take that right away in that manner, I think is not appropriate.
As we look down at the rest of 2011, the president had made some assurances about where unemployment would be at this time in his term that turned out not to be true. Is the administration backing off making predictions? Do you see better days ahead in 2 months, 4 months, 8 months?
Well, I would hope that we do. I think that, again, looking at what the president did in terms of the tax credits in December has been helping to alleviate, I think, the pressure that we're under. I also think that the Congress really does have a responsibility not to be reckless in terms of what decisions they make about cutting back on good government programs that do help innovate, push us forward so we can create more jobs. Right now, as economists are saying, it's not the time to cut back on these very important, vital programs when the recovery is just coming back. That would be detrimental. You can possibly see any number of people that would increase and add to the unemployment line. So I think that we have to be very judicial, very surgical when we do talk about cuts, where they're going to be, and that we don't hurt vulnerable people, as the president has said, and don't hurt the recovery.